Well, welcome algebra students, and we're looking at lesson 8 from unit 8, and it scares a lot of people. It's called word problems. We're going to take a look at this here, at this question here, but just take it in pieces, and it really is not difficult at all. It says, consider a rectangle whose area is 45 feet. Okay, so right away I see area is 45 square feet. That's important. Underline that or highlight it. If we know the length, there's the length, is 1 less than twice the width, I would highlight, underline, or highlight that, then find the dimensions of the rectangle. Well, they're telling you right here, if we represent the width of the rectangle using the variable w, then write an expression for the length, okay, L, in terms of w. So we don't want to use L in another variable, we're going to use w. So I'm going to pause here the video and fill this in for you, and then I want you to fill it in, we're going to talk about it. So, what it now basically says here, we know we want to write the width. Go back to here. It says the length is 1 less than twice the width. So remember, 1 less than. That less than part is critical. We take the 1, we boot it all the way to the end. So twice the width part right here means, if I just told you twice the width, it means 2 times that. And I said boot the 1 to the end. 1 less than means minus 1 at the end. So we've written the length in terms of w, the width. Now in part B, it says set up an equation you can use to solve this. Well, you're going to have to go back to middle school and remember your area is equal to what on a rectangle? And hopefully you remember length times width. We can't help you there. You have to know that. They told us the area is 45, didn't they? Square feet up there in the beginning. So I would substitute that in. The length we just got done writing, isn't that 2w minus 1? And that's times, so I'm going to have to use parentheses, w. So we've written an equation. So I want you to take a moment and see if you can solve this. We're going to go and pause the video and see if you can come up with it. All right, let's see if you did what I did. So I've written down the problem here. I'm going to take this w and I'm going to distribute it. It kind of looks backwards, but it still times the thing in parentheses. So I get 45 equals, it's going to be 2w squared now, because 2w times w is 2w squared, minus 1 times w is minus w. Well, I've got a w squared here, and by now you should be used to that. Get everything on one side. So I'm going to bring the 45 over. When I do that, I get 2w squared minus w minus a 45 equals nothing. I'm just going to flip-flop that around, put the 0 on the right side instead of the left side, okay? And at this point, this looks like a typical trinomial. I have no GCF, but it should right away click to you, hey, I'm solving this. It's exactly what we learned in the previous days. So let's go to town and factor it, okay? So if I'm factoring it, I got my A, B, and C here. If you're going to use the Xbox method, some of you guys can handle it a little better. 2, a minus 1 on the B, and a minus 45. So if I do my Xbox here, I've got 2 times a negative 45, so that's a negative 90 on my AC, and my B is a negative 1. So I got to come up with numbers that multiply to negative 90 and add to a negative 1. You could use your calculator, remember. The bottom line is it comes out to be 9 and 10. And of course, I want a negative 1, so I'm going to use the negative on the 10, positive on the 9. So if I go back to the beginning, because we never could do a GCF with that 2 out of everything, I'm going to have a 2w squared. And now I'm going to have a, if which way you want to go here, I'm going to do, normally I guess we put the minus 10 on the left and then put the 9 on the right. My bad, sorry. So minus 10w plus a 9w and then minus 45 equals 0. Factor by grouping, we can take out a 2 and a w there. I'm left with w minus, if you divide them both by 2w, 5. And on the 9 part here, I can factor out a 9, so plus 9. And I'm left with a w minus 5, which is exactly what we want, same on both sides. So one pair is w minus 5, and the other pair is 2w, the stuff out in front here, and the plus 9. And that all equals 0. And then we learned from one of our other lessons, we tee it up. So I get a w minus 5 equals 0. When I bring over the 5, I get positive 5 for the width. 2w plus 9 equals 0. Bring over the 9, so minus 9. 2w equals negative 9. Divide by 2. And w is equal to negative 9 halves. Now, It does ask you, those are the two answers we had, and they said find both dimensions, so you got to plug those back into the length. So for instance, the length here, if I did for the length 2w minus 1, 2 times 5 minus 1 is equal to 10 minus 1 is 9. So these are my two answers right there. The width is 5, the length is that. If I plugged it in here, I'm going to get a different answer, but here's a problem right here. They ask you right now, why is this not viable? Can you have a negative length of something in real life? No. If they were asking you just to solve and come up with some solutions, great. But in real life, you can't have a negative solution, so we would reject this side, okay? That's all we have. All right, let's go on to another one. All right, the other question I want you guys to look at is number 4. So if we take a look at that, it says find all sets of 2 consecutive integers, so 2 consecutive integers, and then it says such that the product is 8 less than 10 times the smaller integer. Okay. Well, first of all, we got to go back to this, and we learned this earlier in the year, and it's been a while, so I expect you probably forgot it. 2 consecutive integers. The word consecutive, once again, means in a row. And they didn't say anything about even or odd. So if you remember the way we set this up, we usually let x equal the first consecutive integer. So I'm going to abbreviate first consecutive integer. And then the next one would be the next one in a row. So 2 consecutive integers are like 3 and 4, 7 and 8, -3, -2, 15, 16, okay? So what am I doing in every case? I'm adding 1. So my next one, my second consecutive integer, okay? And I'm going to use ditto marks here, just meaning consecutive integer. I'm being really lazy here. Okay, that's what that means, okay? So I've got x and then x plus 1. That's the way to do this title of 2 consecutive integers. Now, we want to know their product. What does product mean again? Yes, you're right. We're going to multiply. And it says their product is 8 less than 10 times the smaller one. So their product means take the 2, x times x plus 1. That's the product. That's what that means. And that whole thing is 8 less than equals 8 less than, oh, there's that less than again, so take that and boot the 8 at the end, 10 times the smaller. Well, hold on, let's have a brain think here. Who's smaller, x or x plus 1? I hope you got some common sense that x is smaller than x plus 1, okay? In normal positive terms we're talking about here. So, I want 8 less than 10 times that. So if x, the smaller one is x, 10 times x, there we go. And 8 less than that, remember we booted it up here afterwards, minus 8. So there's our equation. So we got to start solving. Well, I hope you see this right away and you want to start and distribute. So you should get an x times x is x squared. X times 1 is x equals 10x minus 8. Now, is this x squared going anywhere? No. So if it's not going anywhere, get everybody on the one side. So the opposite of a 10x here is a minus 10x. And of course, that does not go with the x squared. It goes with the x. So I'm going to put a minus 10x under here. If you want to take it all at one time, I also know the 8 has to come over. So the opposite of minus 8 is plus 8. The 8 doesn't go with either term, so I'm just going to put plus 8 over here, still on that side of the equal sign, drawing my line. So x squared has nobody to go with. It comes down. Then we've got right here an x and a minus 10x, and I hope you get a minus 9x out of that. And then we have this 8 that goes with nobody, brought down, equals. This side, we got rid of everything, so what's left? 0. Notice, I put my equal sign, I brought it down. I didn't move it between the 8 or something. Well, it should look familiar again. I got a trinomial equal to 0. Is there any GCF? No. So I'm going to try my AC method unless you're really good at this stuff already. My A is this unwritten 1 times 8. So 1 times 8 is an 8 for the AC. My B is a negative 9. I'll put that there. What factors of 8 give me a negative 9 when I add them up? Well, you got 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. And 1 and 8 is the pair that adds up. Okay? So, and they both have to be negative to give me a positive 8. So a negative 1 I need and a negative 8. And once again, it's up to you which way you put it. So, I'm going to bring this way up over here. We'll start writing it. My first term was x squared. Then I'm going to use my box here. So I'm going to do a minus x, then a minus 8x. And I have a plus 8 equals 0. Remember, you bring down the ax squared and the c at the end there. All right, so we're going to factor by grouping. What do they share? An x. I take it out. I'm left with x minus 1. On these two here, what do they share? Well, they share an 8, and I don't want that minus sign, so pull out a minus 8, which gives me an x. And then when I divide by a minus 8 here, remember that becomes a minus 1 equals 0. So what do they share in common? The x minus 1s. What is on the outside here? An x with a minus 8 equals 0. Tee it up, and you will get x minus 1 equals 0. And x minus 8 equals 0. Add the 1 to both sides, add the 1. So x turns out to be 1. And x also, when you add 8 here, to both sides, turns out to be 8. Now, our consecutive, if you go back to the beginning back here, said it's x and x plus 1. So what's x plus 1? Well, if I add 1 onto 1, I get 2. And if I add 1 on the x plus 1 onto 8, I get 9. So I get two sets of answers. The 1 and 2 are consecutive numbers, okay? And you should check to see if they work. And the 8 and 9, okay? So I've got both paired there. It did not say anything about real life situations where you're talking about a length of something or things like that. It said consecutive integers. 1 and 2, 8 and 9 are the consecutive. Negatives would have been good here if you got that. So I got two sets that actually work, all right? Test them out. We're going to do some more in class, so we'll see you then. Have a good evening, afternoon, or morning, depending when you're watching this.